I found it fascinating to talk with the chief of MYOB, Tim Reid. His company provides the accounting software for about 70% of the Australian small and medium businesses. So he's got his finger right on the pulse. And there's a number of important changes. One is that the really small businesses, the sole traders, aren't doing well. Overall, in most areas of business, those large and medium-sized businesses are doing very well, except in one place, and that's retail. The retailers are not doing well. They're struggling. They have to cut their prices, sell a lot more to make the same amount of money. That's an important situation for our economy. It means that, for example, shopping centres, the value of shopping centres is not going to rise. It could easily fall. And there's another change that will affect the way we use physical property. That 70% of our small and medium businesses are going online in a way they've never done before. That can be selling their goods, it can be processing their goods, it can be dealing with customers. But it's an enormous change. And it does mean that we're going to use physical assets, property and things like that very differently. The other thing, of course, with MYOB is that it's now part of private equity. And it's interesting to talk with Tim because private equity is an interesting alternative as an exit for a lot of family businesses. So it's over to Tim Reid. Tim, what share of the accounting software market have you got in the small and medium business sector?
Yeah, so we've been around for 20 years and we have about 1 million businesses in Australia and New Zealand who use our applications today. So it's almost 1 in 2. So if you went out there into the Australian business community, every second business would be using one of our products, which probably means that we've got about a 70% market share because there's still a number, particularly of really small sole traders, who haven't yet made the decision to automate some of those back office systems.
Do you have any rivals?
We do. They have the other 30% of the market.
Who's that?
Well, the largest one is a product called QuickBooks that's retailed here in Australia. And then there's a string of very, very small competitors after that.
You were an entrepreneurial listed company, and now you're owned by private equity, the Archer Group. What's the difference?
So now I'd say we're an entrepreneurial private company as opposed to an entrepreneurial public company. Look, the difference really does come down to the way in which the board and a lot of those corporate compliance issues are managed. From a business perspective, we've always put our clients first. We've been a very client-centric view of the world, and one of the things that our founders instilled in us is that you've got to have a really deep understanding of your client to be able to serve their needs. And that hasn't changed. Because of that, we've had a view on customer service. That hasn't changed. We've had a view on really building products that work for many, many businesses as opposed to doing specific one-off solutions, and that hasn't changed. So, our focus on making business life easier that was there at the start, none of that has changed. At the corporate level, we don't have to report earnings to the stock exchange anymore. The board of directors are quite close to the operations of the business because they don't have to worry on a lot of the regulatory things that public companies have to worry about. But for 99% of the business, the change actually has not been significant.
Has your profit jumped?
So we have a history of making profits. In fact, every single year as a business, with one exception, our profits have grown, and they've continued to grow under the private ownership as they did under public ownership.
Did they cut back marketing or research or things like that?
No, quite the opposite. In fact, our research and development budget this year was just heading towards $25 million, which is about a 20-25% increase compared to when we were a public company. Our marketing budget grew 50% in the first year that we were a private business. So the owners of the business have really taken a view that now is the time for us to invest, that there are many great things we could be doing for our clients and that we're investing to make those reality.
Would you recommend to an entrepreneurial business, whether it be listed or unlisted, to use private equity as the exit for the family?
So look, I think you've got to look at the desires of the shareholders, and I think there are many different scenarios that can play into specific recommendations. It's certainly been a positive experience for us, and so I could talk about that, but I do think it comes back to working out what the actual goals of those owners are in determining to change the ownership.
How has the needs of smaller and medium businesses changed in the last few years?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest thing in the last few years is the GFC, and many business owners, if you look back 12 or 18 months ago, were really uncertain. They were very nervous about what was happening around them. Because of the role that our solutions play in their business, what that meant was we got a lot more questions about cash flow management. You know, we hadn't had questions coming into our contact centres about that for years, and those sorts of things came back and really came to the fore. I think accurate financial data through that time, again, just rose overall in terms of the priorities. As I look forward, I see them changing again, and particularly in the last 12 months, we've seen a lot more interest in online solutions. We survey businesses. We run the largest survey of Australian businesses 3 or 4 times a year, and the areas that they want to look to is, how do I make more from the internet? How do I engage my customers online? And there's a lot of belief that that is what needs to come next, but also a lot of questions about how business owners make that happen.
Aren't they doing that already?
Some are, but the majority of Australian businesses don't have a website yet. Lots of them still use a Yahoo or a Gmail email account, so they haven't got their brand there, and their email address is becoming, you know, let's face it, more important frequently than their logo or the name on their physical premises.
So how will you change your business to adapt to that?
Yeah, so we have a vision. We call it the enterprise of tomorrow, and we're pretty excited about bringing it to bear. The first thing is businesses need to build that online presence, and they need to have a way to do it affordably and effectively. And the mistake that lots of businesses make is they're building a website and they try and think about the look, right? So they're very worried about the colours that are the background and so on, because in hard paper, you know, physical collateral, that's been a really important point. That's not nearly as important online. When you look at advertising online, banners have almost gone by the wayside as a source of driving traffic, yet tiny little embedded links that just put, you know, 2 to 10 words together have become very effective. So the first thing is to understand that the message and the placement of the message in an online world is the most important thing. The reason a business builds a website is to be found. And so the website has to rate well in search engines. And that's been a real challenge for small businesses, because the search engines, they build a beautiful looking website and it's off there to the side. No one finds it, no one visits it. So one of the things that we're working on is the ability for a small business to build a website that is found. And the way that we're doing that is linking those websites directly into Google search and making sure that the way in which this data is structured makes the search engines pick it up so that those businesses can be found.
You're almost competing with Yellow Pages now.
I wouldn't say that, because I think the Yellow Pages tie a physical book to, you know, a Yellow Pages website. The solutions we provide are for a business to build their own website where they control that and they control that content. The other thing is, in this enterprise of tomorrow, we're going to link the information that exists inside the business to that website. So if you think about a small retailer, and retailers are doing it quite tough at the moment, they have some inventory, it's in their shop, and they'd like to put it on their website to be able to sell it online as well as in their shop. What they don't need to do is have all their inventory in a point of sale system where they sell it in their store, and then in a separate system that gets published to their website. Because if they sell it online and then someone takes it out of the store and they don't have enough inventory, they're constantly marrying 2 sources of data. What we're doing in the enterprise of tomorrow is building that around a common set of information which can work in multiple channels. So it can work in store and it can work online.
Retailers are doing it tough. Does that go right across the board?
It doesn't. I think retailers are doing it tougher than any other part of the economy right now. In fact, when we look at business services, when we look at agriculture, when we look at other industries, they're quite bullish, and they're feeling quite good about their future prospects. And we ask businesses what they see in their sales pipeline, so that we get a view of not just how they're feeling, their sentiment, but how their business is likely to perform. And retailers do stand out as the one area that are doing it much tougher than others.
Why?
Well, I think there's a few factors. Firstly, the Reserve Bank's putting up interest rates, and that does cut back discretionary spending. The really large retailers, I think, have over the past few years got consumers into a mentality of sale, sale, sale. Don't buy something if it's not on sale. So even when I talk to retailers about those that are doing okay and are maintaining their overall revenue, they have to sell a lot more because their margins are much thinner than they were. So they're working harder to stay at that same point. And finally, I think for many years, consumers just let their debt build and build and build. And with the scare that happened, we're now bringing that under control. In the long run, that's probably a good thing for our economy. But right now, it makes it tough if you're a small retailer.
And I suppose a lot of the supplies have come from overseas, so it doesn't go down the chain.
It has. I mean, largely, if you look through that supply chain, Australia is part of a global economy now, but the retailer really serves a local market.
Tim, looking back and looking forward, what do you find works for your business, and how are you applying that?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're really fortunate is our founders embedded in the business are absolute mentality that the clients come first. So when you look at our company values, the first one is clients drive our world. And right through our team, we think about our clients and we constantly ask ourselves, well, if we do that, will it make business life easier? If we invest in that, will it be easier to run a business? How many businesses will benefit from that? And everything we do, we put to this test, will it make business life easier? Because the only reason we're in business is we provide solutions that make it easier for other people to be in business. And so I think one of the things that we've done really well as a company, starting at a very small company, right through to where we are today, serving 1 million other businesses, is keep that client-first mentality. Will it make business life easier? We've made mistakes along the way, of course, as well. We've had to change the way in which we do things as we've grown. We've made investments that haven't paid off, but we've never been scared to stop trying things. And I think that's the other thing that was there right from the start. That we put a lot of thought into things before we do them, but then we give things a good run, and we put a lot of energy and effort into the things that we do, but we're not scared of failing.
And in terms of smaller businesses, do you notice any difference between the prosperity of very small businesses as distinct from larger, medium-sized businesses?
We do. So as we look across the span today, and we went out and surveyed businesses about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and one of the distinct patterns we found were sole traders were less optimistic. They felt that their businesses weren't performing quite as well, and they saw less. They were less bullish about the future. As you moved into smaller businesses, those that perhaps employ 5, 10, 15, 20 employees, we saw the confidence rise. We saw the amount of sales that they had in their pipeline starting to grow. And then as we moved into medium-sized businesses, the sort of 20 to 200 business, they are actually quite bullish at the moment, and we saw a lot of confidence coming from that area. So these really small businesses and retailers.
Why are the small businesses struggling?
So again, I think if we look over the past couple of years, their clients, the businesses and consumers that buy from them, probably also became nervous about the stability of their suppliers. Okay. So they feel more confident in dealing with slightly larger businesses. Okay. I also think that a lot of the time it's just a one-person business, and it's been a tough couple of years. And those people, all business owners, take business very personally. One thing we know dealing with our clients is business isn't business, business is personal. But that's even more so at that smaller end.
Jim, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Robert. Thanks for having me.